Welcome everyone. I'm Brett and I am with Crave Books. I work on the marketing team with Crave Books and I am also an author of children's book and early chapter books. And I've used StoryOrigin, so I kind of have an idea of how the platform works. I haven't used all of it, so I'm curious to get a little bit more information. But I just want to welcome Evan Gow from StoryOrigin. He is going to be giving us a little bit of everything about email list building, book marketing, and how to use StoryOrigin. So we're gonna see if we can cover as much as we can in the time we have and answer all of your questions. So yeah, drop your questions whenever you have them. We'll get to them maybe in that moment, or we might come back to them.
Yeah,
So
I'm happy to answer them as we go. So,
yeah, that works. I kind of prefer doing that just because it's right there.
yeah.
So we'll try to do that. Evan, thanks for hopping on.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so could you give us a little bit of background about you? Obviously, you are the man behind Story Origin, but who are you? How did you end up building Story Origin? You said you did a little bit of short stories in high school, so just give us that background intro.
Yeah. So like I was saying earlier, I used to write like sci-fi fantasy short stories back in high school. Went to college, got interested in tech and entrepreneurship, wanted to start my own company and build software and stuff at some point, and then worked for a few years, and then wanted to get back into writing and build tools for authors. So I left my job and I went and I talked to a bunch of authors to get their advice from them, and they said, okay, so use this service to build your mailing list, use this service to find reviewers, use this service to create universal book links, use some combination of Facebook groups and Google Forms to arrange newsletter swaps, use this other service to build your website, use this service. I was like, okay, wait, stop. I see the problem. You've got like 8 different services, 5 different spreadsheets. You're doing all this context switching between all these different things, and it's just really difficult to manage, and it's taking a lot of time away from writing. So I set out to build a sort of a one-stop shop where you could do everything. And I think had I told you at the time, like, I'm gonna do this thing that I'm gonna build a thing that you currently have like 8 different services for and 5 different spreadsheets for, and it's gonna be really easy to use and like and do those things well. I think you would have had a hard time believing me, but here we are, let's see, seven years later now. And StoryOrigin does all the things we talked about, plus other things I didn't mention, like beta copies, distributing audiobook promo codes, building your author website, creating link collections, like link tree kind of style pages. It does a whole wide array of things. So there's lots to talk about.
Yeah. When I first started my account of Story Origin, I was just basically using it for group promos and newsletter swaps, but that whole tab right there is full of just different author tools that you can use, and we'll get into those. Um, but first, let's kind of talk about email marketing in general.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe even 5 to 10 years ago, everyone said email was dead. And then now we've actually seen a resurgence. I feel like there's a huge newsletter resurgence, um, and it's getting super popular. So my question isn't, is email dead? My question is it becoming oversaturated? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't think that email can be oversaturated per se, because it's each individual's, each individual controls their own inbox, right? So is any particular person oversaturated by emails? Yeah, I'm sure there are people who think they get way too many emails, right? But there's also people who are, sort of cultivate their inbox and really only subscribe to the newsletters they want to, and you don't have to stay on everything or whatever or join everything, right? So I think it's hard to say that email is as a as a general thing is oversaturated. And really, it's the only way that you can actually have a direct connection with your audience that someone else does not control, right? Like It's the most archaic technology that we use on a day-to-day basis. Like email is from like I mean as early as like the 70s. Granted, like email in the form that it is today is like, a little bit you would not, they're still very similar, but like it's this archaic technology, but it's this thing which is decentralized and nobody owns it. Unlike all these other platforms like social media where, you don't control it, and if someone wants to just like delete your account and you lose your following, there's no way to get that back versus if you've got like a newsletter and a mailing list, if your email service provider for whatever reason like goes out of business, you can always just download the list of emails from your mailing list and upload that to a different email service provider and send emails through them instead, right? So it's this thing that you control, and there's not really any good replacement for that because all the other platforms are owned by companies that have their own interests and things, and it's not decentralized.
Yeah, I've actually seen a couple big YouTubers, not necessarily authors, but big YouTubers that are making all their money on YouTube who've had their accounts shut down and they're just devastated because they obviously didn't
Yeah,
have an email list and
right.
they've lost all that work.
Right. And there are big authors too that have had their accounts taken down. And it's like sometimes you get very little heads up to no heads up. It's just like your account's canceled, like suspended or whatever. And you're like, what? Why? Why? Like,
Yeah.
and it can be difficult. And when you have an email list and you have your own website, at least if things go down, if your account is suspended on some retailer for whatever reason, if you have that email list, you can say, hey, you can go buy the books from me at this other retailer, or you can buy the books directly from me if you have your direct sales store set up, and you can do that too with StoryOrigin. I wasn't something I mentioned earlier, but you can do direct sale ebooks, and yeah, so there's just so much value to email still for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I'm sure there's seems like we have a lot of authors here that are already familiar with email marketing and everything in general. But for those who aren't, are there any misconceptions, common misconceptions that authors have and like reasons they give for not starting an email list?
I mean, definitely the most common sort of reason that authors don't want to start a mailing list is one, they're like, I don't know how to get subscribers. Like, why would anyone sign up to my newsletter? And then two is like, I don't know what I would write in my newsletter. Like, I'm supposed to send this thing like what once a month. I don't know what I'm gonna put in it. Um, and then just like a lot of just general anxiety about like having that direct connection with your audience. It is more personal in some aspects than social media, because email is like this sort of direct one-to-one connection. When you send a newsletter out, it might go out to, 20,000 people, but when people reply, they're replying to you as an individual, and no one else really sees that conversation. And so it can feel more personal. And some authors have anxiety about that, but that's one of the things that I love about emails, that you can develop those direct connections. It is sort of unique in that way.
Yeah, do you have any tips on how to overcome that anxiety if you do have it?
Just start sending newsletters to yourself. Just start writing your newsletter. Just create your account on, MailerLite or MailChimp or ActiveCampaign or ConvertKit or SendFox or Flowdesk or whatever you want to use. Uh, just start your list, put your own email address on there, and once a month, start sending newsletters, even if they only go to yourself. Like the best thing to do is just to get started, even if like no one else is paying attention. And that will, when you get two or three other people on your mailing list, then you're like, I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing, and it won't feel quite as much like you have this huge thing that you have to overcome. If the first newsletter that you send out is a newsletter like right after you do some big builder or something, and you've got 500 people on your mailing list right off the bat, and you've never sent a newsletter before, that can feel a lot more nerve-wracking than when you're just sending an email to yourself, right? So then you don't need to worry as much.
Yeah, yeah. And going back to that first thing you mentioned, email growth, not authors not knowing how to grow. Obviously, that's one of the main functions of StoryOrigin to help authors grow their email list. But even before that, um, for the authors who are newer, if I want readers to sign up, where can they find my newsletter sign up page?
Yes. So there are a few different places that you can go to, grow your newsletter. So you'll want to create, generally, I recommend first you want to have a reason for people to sign up to your mailing list, right? If you just say, hey, sign up to my mailing list so I can spam you, then they're not going to want to sign up, right? So give them a reason. And usually that reason, for a lot of readers, what they're looking for is a story, right? And so uh, write a, write a story that you give away for free when someone signs up to your mailing list. Now, for fiction authors, I generally recommend a prequel short story to your book or your series. So like 15 to 20,000 words, that's a prequel to your book or your series. It doesn't have to be that. Throughout this talk, I'm sure we are going to have a lot of recommendations, but I will say take everything with a grain of salt. Do not let these recommendations become roadblocks, right? They're simply meant to be things that you might think about adding later. You do not need them from the get-go necessarily, right? So while I recommend a prequel short story, if that's going to take you 3 months to write, edit, polish, get a book cover, do all that stuff before you start building your mailing list and you put that up as a roadblock for yourself, that is 3 months of like that you have not been building your mailing list. And that is that can be kind of crucial to helping you launch books, right? So if what you have today is you've already written and published a book, just take the first three chapters of that book and use that sample as your reader magnet just to get started. You can have multiple things that you give away for free when someone signs up to your mailing list. Um, and so like it doesn't mean that you can't write that short story prequel later on down the line, if you get started with just using like a sample version of your book or something along those lines. So that's a good option for just getting started. So I said fiction authors, prequel short story, that's good. For nonfiction authors, generally, it can be a little bit more varied. Might be like a workbook that goes along with whatever your book is about. It might be like a guide or a companion to that book. It might be some worksheets or something like that. It might be flashcards or other kinds of things that provide value to your audience for that book, right? So it could be lots of different things. Um, but yeah,
I think you
so
said something really important,
yeah,
providing value. Can you
yes.
expand on that?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, everything is all about providing value. And I'll get into this as well when you're sending newsletters out, but it's all about providing value to your audience. Just like when you're trying to get subscribers to your mailing list, how do you get readers onto that mailing list is by providing them value. It's by providing them that story, that free, short story or companion guide or sample or what have you, for them getting on your mailing list. And so in your newsletters as well, I recommend there's lots of good ways to provide value to that audience as well when you're sending regular newsletters. For example, readers like myself, and there are lots of readers like me, um, love browsing books and adding to their to be read list. My to be read list is super long, right? Uh, and that does not stop me from browsing what else is new out there and continuing to add to it. Like I love like browsing new books and seeing like what else is out there. Um, and so when you are sending out newsletters, that's sort of one of the key components that I recommend for your newsletter. It's really broken down in two parts: providing value and building rapport. And so that providing value part, the thing that you can do for readers is share books that they might be interested in reading, right? And that gives them a reason to open your emails and click on things and continuing to open your emails and click on things, because you're like it's sort of like an Easter egg every time they open your newsletter. Like, what am I going to discover this time? And then the second part of that newsletter is building rapport. And for me, what I do in my newsletter is I usually have a picture of something that happened in the past week or two. It was my eldest son's 5-year-old birthday. He just turned 5 a couple of weeks ago, and then my 1-year-old just turned 1 the month after that. So I had pictures of them like eating cake in one of my newsletters. Um, my dog Cosmo was sitting on the couch and he had his like head like resting on a pillow. And so I just sat next to him and I took a selfie just because I thought he was looking cute. I put that in my newsletter. Like it doesn't need to be, they don't need to be like necessarily super special occasions like birthdays or anything. I can just be like, your dog looks cute on the couch too. But I'll put, a picture just from something that happened recently and write a few lines about it, like maybe like 3 or 4 sentences about it. And that helps you build rapport with your audience because then they get a sense of like who you are and what your life is like, and they feel like they like kind of know you at least a little bit better than if they've just used the software you built, right?
Yeah, you're not a robot. So
Yeah,
you're
exactly,
not some
exactly. Like
text
I'm
on
a
a
real
screen.
human.
Yeah, yeah, that really goes to being personable and relatable and building
Yeah.
that trust. So if I have them on my email list, I just got somebody on my email list. What should I do next? Am I sending
Yeah.
them an email immediately? Do I need a welcome email? What's your advice on that?
Yeah. So once someone joins your list, it is a great idea to send them an email, just introducing yourself and start to build that sort of personal connection with them and say like, hey, hope you enjoy, your free copy of XYZ. And then maybe tell them a little bit about yourself. Tell them maybe about the what you like to read and what you like to write, and maybe who some of your favorite authors are. I generally recommend a 4 email welcome sequence. You do not, again, this is going to go back to what I was saying earlier. Do not let these recommendations be roadblocks, right? If what you have today or what you can do today is like start a mailing list and just send out regular newsletters, and you don't want to take the time to figure out how to set up a welcome sequence, then don't like get started building a mailing list and sending out newsletters, and you can incrementally add on to this stuff later. Like it's not going to be a problem. Um, and so even if you just have a single email, welcome email sequence that just says, hey, thanks for signing up to my mailing list. Hope you enjoy the book. That is great. You are going to be ahead of 80% of the game. So uh, I though recommend a 4 email welcome sequence. The first of which is like a, hey, thanks. Hope you enjoy the freebie. That's the first email in the welcome sequence. Include like the link to download the book again there. If you're using StoryOrigin to build that landing page for your reader magnet, StoryOrigin will also handle delivering that file in the download link to the reader. But I think that it's also a good idea to put the download link into your welcome email as well. That way you create that association between maybe like a picture of your face in that email and that book being from you. Um, the second email in your welcome sequence, I generally recommend this being a little bit about you. And so you might say, here are some of my favorite authors. The only thing that you know about that person that signed up to your mailing list is that they read whatever genre that you write because they got your book, right?
Yeah,
And so you can talk about like, oh, this is how I got really interested in like lit RPG. Lit RPG is the genre that I read mostly. Um, which is like basically fantasy with the characters usually have like stats for strength and like
Dungeon
charisma and
Crawler
intelligence.
Carl, right?
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Dungeon Crawler Call is a great example. He Who Fights with Monsters, Defiance of the Fall, like there's a bunch, yeah. Um, um, yeah, but that one is great, and yeah, I love that series. So I would say that email you can say like, oh yeah, some of my favorite authors are like Matt Dinniman or Shirtaloon or these guys that write these lit RPGs, and then you might say, hey, who are some of your favorite authors in this genre? And that then establishes that you are open to like connecting with people and that you want to build a relationship with people. And so having those ends of like having those questions in your emails can be a great way at actually starting to build real relationships. Someone was asking in the chat, like, hey, I've got a 35% open rate, but like no one ever responds to my emails. That is a great way to get people to respond to some of your emails is just by asking really simple questions. Um, it doesn't need to be like who's your favorite author. It can be my newsletter is about like software for authors. But the other week, I included a picture of like my wife made some like fried some vegetables and things on a grill. And we don't own a grill, so she went over to her parents to grill this stuff. And I was like, this like vegetables that are like grilled are just so much better. And it makes me consider wanting to get a grill. And then of course, like I said, like, do you have any thoughts on grills? And like people have strong, like people that grill have strong opinions about grills, right?
If they hear your opinion, they're going to want to share their opinion.
Yeah, yeah. And so they're like, oh, like you have to get this, and this is why. Um, and like I don't ask those questions like out of like me just trying to engage people. I'm genuinely curious. Like I actually want these answers because I don't know anything about grilling. And like I've got a few, I have like 20,000 people that I can ask that question to, and I'm sure someone will give me a good answer. So yeah, like I generally think just like asking those kinds of questions, again, it doesn't need to be about like books or authorship or your genre or anything. It just can be whatever like you think might like be a interesting way to connect with someone. Just like if you bump into someone and you have to share like a long train ride sitting next to someone or like a plane flight or whatever. Like if you want to engage them in conversation, you just like look for like little things to talk about. It doesn't need to be yeah, specific to anything in particular. So I find that that's a really great way to engage people and start to build those relationships.
I think opinions really kind of stir the pot. And if you're willing to share your opinion, then they're more willing to share their opinion back, especially if
Yeah,
they have a strong opinion on that topic, which
yeah.
I think authors might, and just anyone who has a newsletter in general might not do enough is be opinionated. I mean, you don't have to go out there and start chanting whatever political stuff unless you're a political writer. But yeah, that's a really that's a good piece of advice right there.
Yeah, you can
Christopher
just be
will
like, chocolate cake is the best dessert. Fight me.
and then with the picture.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Christopher, we'll get to that. We're going to talk about direct selling and websites in a little bit. I want to stay on email list building for a little bit longer. And I wanted to ask, actually, anyone in the chat, since we just talked about welcome sequences, how
Mhm.
many people have a one or multiple automated welcome email sequence? So just drop that in the chat. I'm curious. Um,
Oh, and I didn't even finish. I got totally sidetracked. I didn't
we
even
were on number
finish
three,
what
were
my
we?
four email. So number one is the thank you email. Number two is the like, here's a little bit about me. Third email, I would say entice them to get started reading that reader magnet, that freebie that you gave to them. Because again, like me and like many other readers have very long to be read lists, right? And so they might have downloaded that book from you, but it might be, it might not be 6 months until they actually are planning to read it. And so if you can write an email that really entices them to get started reading it, that is a great idea because it'll move your book up their to be read list, right? Even if they've got it downloaded, doesn't mean that they're going to read it. And so you got to also entice them to get started reading it. And so, third email, just again, like maybe you talk about what inspired the story, or maybe you talk about a particular character arc and leave like a little bit of mystery or something there and get them to want to delve into that mystery. Or maybe you talk about um like some of the side characters or side stories or any of that, anything that you think that might entice them. And one of the things I was talking to someone just earlier today about a just marketing in general, and he had a recommendation that authors go get a sheet of paper, get a pen, and write down 20 things, 20 like angles to their book. And I liked the way that he framed it because when he was talking about it, it sounded not necessarily just like marketing angles, but more like what are things about your book that make you enthusiastic about it, right? It might even be like something like you wrote it on a cruise ship and like you're enthusiastic that you wrote a book while you were on a cruise or whatever, right? Like and so all of these write all these things down, things that make you enthusiastic. And so many authors, I think, hate being salesy. I likewise also hate being salesy. So I always, when I am writing newsletters or anything else, like I'm generally not like trying to sell people so much as like I'm trying to talk about how I am enthusiastic about how this works or whatever, right? Because like for those people that then share that enthusiasm, they'll pick it up, right? Like I don't need to worry about trying to convert someone who is not interested to someone who is interested. It's more just like I share my enthusiasm, and the other people that also share that enthusiasm will then want to come along for the ride too. Um, so I think that's a great way to frame it. So that's the third email in the welcome sequence. The fourth email in the welcome sequence is what I call the find your champions email. And that is where you find the people who might want to join your review team or become beta readers for you. And so I would recommend the call to action in that email is just like, hey, would you like to join my, my review team? You get early access to my books, and you can read it ahead of everyone else, make it feel a little bit more exclusive. And great title for this email is, "Hey, would you like to get all of my books free forever?" Because that is very
Love
enticing.
it.
And if
Love
they
it.
are on your review team and they actually read and review like book one, yeah, sure, you're definitely gonna get book two. And so yeah, if you read and review my books, yeah, you can have them all. And so yeah, that's just like a super enticing call to action for a lot of readers too. So those are the four emails in the welcome sequence. So those again are just like a thank you, here's your freebie. Two is here's a bit about me. Three is enticing them to get started reading that reader magnet that they presumably already have downloaded. And fourth is that find your champions email.
Yeah, I always say at least three. And at the bare minimum, you should have one because I mean, me personally, when I give my email to somebody or whatever it is, I'm like, I want to know that I'm on the list. I go to my inbox to check to see if I got the welcome email. And if it doesn't come, then I'm just kind of like, oh man, that's lame.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
it looks like a lot of people here say they do have at least one welcome email, so that's obviously good. Karen said, "Have MailerLite, and I don't know how to set up a sequence. I get confused by directions easily. You know, sometimes I mean the tech stuff inside the email service providers can be a little tricky. Do you have any advice on that? I'm sure there's lots of YouTube videos out there too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say YouTube is your friend. You can find lots of tutorials on these various things, and most email service providers have their own video tutorials and support documentation that will show you step by step how to set up a lot of this stuff. I believe the term on MailerLite is called automations. So most email service providers don't call it a welcome sequence. Most email service providers and when I say email service providers, I mean like MailChimp, MailerLite, ConvertKit, ActiveCampaign, SendFox, Flowdesk, whatever, whatever you're using to design and send your newsletters. So whatever your service you're using to design and send your newsletters, they're probably going to use a different term for it than welcome sequence. It might be something like autoresponders or automations or something along those lines. And if you just Google, those terms plus whatever the name or your email service provider is, you can probably find their support documentation or YouTube videos showing you how to set those up.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, YouTube is your friend. We
Yeah.
might create a little email list, email setup series on YouTube. So just be on the lookout for that too, Karen. You touched on Kelly's, yeah, open rate. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Kind of be opinionated. One suggestion I heard was instead of saying, "What's your favorite book?" I change it from "What's your favorite book?" to "Which book got you into science fiction?" Which
Okay.
is a lot more compelling to the readers rather
Yes.
than this is my favorite book. It's like, oh yeah, I
Yes.
remember that book when I read it in middle school. That's when I fell in love with science fiction. So
Yeah.
just
Yeah. Or like you want to make the question easy to answer, right? Like the other thing that you can do is give them like option A or option B, right? Like which do you prefer, camping or like fully inclusive resort or something like that, right? Like
mhm,
if you're writing maybe like a woodsy mystery thriller book, right? And your characters are going camping or whatever, and maybe that's like a part of the plot or something. You can ask people like, what do you prefer, camping or going to a hotel or maybe glamping or whatever. Um, and those are good things because then people can be like, oh yeah, like I don't want to camp. Like get bitten by bugs. No, thank you.
and I'm like glamping. Come on, glamping, really?
Yeah. Like, don't imply that I could potentially like glamping. No, I rough it like a,
Exactly.
I rough it like a real outdoorsman. Yeah,
Exactly. And you're gonna get people just
yeah,
like that
yeah,
are gonna
yeah,
say respond just like that. And
yeah.
it's so all right, let's keep it rolling. So I want to dive into a little bit more on email list building via Story Origin. So some of the authors have already using Story Origin, but how can they use it effectively to start building their mailing list?
Yes. So I would recommend um you can go on Story Origin and set up that reader magnet landing page, that page where a reader could come and they could sign up to your mailing list to get that freebie download. Then I would recommend joining or arranging group promos or cross promotions. So these are or newsletter swaps. Uh, Group promos and newsletter swaps are two different kinds of cross promotion. So cross promotions are where you and other authors work together to promote each other's books. So a newsletter swap is a one-to-one cross promotion. That is where I would say, sure, I'll promote one of your books in my upcoming newsletter if you promote one of my books in one of your upcoming newsletters. Just to clarify, because some people get confused by the terminology, newsletter swap, you are not exchanging your mailing list with the other author or giving them the email addresses from your mailing list. All that stuff stays private, right? Like don't don't
Yes.
give people don't give another author like your mailing list, right? Um, all you're doing is agreeing to drop the link to their book into one of your newsletters. Um, and then they'll do the same for you. So they'll promote your book in one of their newsletters that they design and send to their own audience. And so those newsletter swaps can be for reader magnets. So some people on their mailing list will see your reader magnet, want to get that for free, and then those readers will individually sign up to get that reader magnet and join your mailing list. Um, or you can arrange newsletter swaps for universal book links if you're trying to promote the sale, where your books are on sale at Amazon or Kobo or Google Play or Barnes and Noble, etc. Or they can be for your review copies, where you're giving those books out for free in exchange for when someone intends to leave a review on that book. So you can have lots of different goals with what any particular cross promotion is about, whether that's building your mailing list, increasing your sales, or finding reviewers. A newsletter swap is just that direct one-to-one cross promotion between you and another author. The second type of cross promotion is called a group promotion, and that's where you, me, and let's say 20 other authors, all in the same genre, put our books on a single landing page, and then we all drive traffic from our newsletters to that landing page. And so we're all collectively, building our mailing lists or finding reviewers or increasing our sales, whatever the goal of that particular group promotion is. So it'll have your reader magnets or your universal book links or your review copies, etc. Um, so those are two great ways to get started with building your mailing list. And a lot of authors are concerned because they're like, I have zero people on my mailing list. Why
Yeah,
would
yeah, that's
I
that's
can't,
the I
how
had a
can,
question like I have zero. He has a thousand. Can I
right? Yeah.
approach this guy? What do I do?
Yeah.
Group promos? I'm so
Yeah.
lost.
So a great way to get started could be just joining group promos, where it's like feels a little bit less pressure to like contribute a ton, when you're just starting out. But even authors, I know a lot of authors will arrange newsletter swaps even if you've got zero people on your mailing list, because a lot of authors on StoryOrigin had zero subscribers when they were starting out, and that might have just been a few months ago. And then they got started by arranging newsletter swaps and joining group promos on StoryOrigin. And other authors were nice enough to accept them into those cross promotions. And now they've got, maybe a few hundred, maybe a few thousand people on their mailing list. And they're like, I know exactly where you're at and how that feels. And I'm more than happy to lend a hand up to someone else, just like someone lended a hand to me. The other thing is, going back to what I was saying earlier about there being two parts to your newsletter, one where you're building rapport and the second where you're providing value. That way that you provide value again to your readers is by giving them other books that they might be interested in your newsletter, right? And so for an author that has, let's say 30,000 subscribers on their mailing list, is very unlikely that they're going to find another author in their exact same genre, or niche that also has 30,000 subscribers on their mailing list, right? And so they're usually always going to be promoting people with smaller mailing lists, but they will continue to do so because what keeps their subscribers opening and clicking on their emails is the fact that they share books, right? It's the fact that they always have those Easter eggs for their subscribers. And at the same time, they're promoting their own books and building rapport with their audience and all of that stuff. But like if I only ever sent out newsletters where I was sharing pictures of my dog and pictures of my kids eating cake, like you're gonna eventually unsubscribe from my newsletter if that's all it becomes, because like you subscribe to StoryOrigin to like market your books and like learn about book marketing and things like that, right? Not to get pictures of me and my dog, no matter how cute my dog might be. And so I could do that for maybe one or two newsletters before you go, Evan, what are you doing here? Unsubscribe.
Yeah.
And so providing value to your audience is extremely valuable. And so yeah, even for the authors that have a ton of subscribers on their mailing list, they're usually still more than happy to do newsletter swaps with people that have much smaller lists than them, because they want to provide that value to their own audience of having books to share that they think their readers might like.
Nice. And you touched on just briefly the landing page, and Tanya Ann has a question. My critique partner uses StoryOrigin, so I'm familiar with newsletter swaps. Does the landing page slash reader magnet appear on StoryOrigin site or what?
Yeah, so StoryOrigin, the landing page would appear on StoryOrigin, storyoriginapp.com slash, whatever your ID for your reader magnet is, for that landing page. But you can also add your own custom domain to StoryOrigin, and this is part of StoryOrigin's sort of website building feature set, which does a lot more than this. But you can host those reader magnet landing pages on your own custom domain as well. So if you want to make it appear on, www.evangow.com, you could.
Okay, cool. She says, thank you. Okay, perfect. Um, so we kind of t talked about, you went into newsletter and answered a couple of my questions that I had. Tracking, that was the question I also had. You do have some pretty cool tracking features on StoryOrigin, and uh, being able to display statistics as well. Could you touch on those?
Yeah, there's like different angles to tracking. So like on cross promotions, for example, you get a specific tracking link when you join a newsletter swap or join a group promo, and that's what you'll promote in your newsletter. And then um authors can see how many clicks other authors got on their tracking links and stuff. So when I'm going to arrange a newsletter swap or join a group promo, I can see, okay, this other author sent X number of clicks to a book. So I know that if I arrange a newsletter swap with them, I can be relatively confident that they're actually upholding their end of the bargain. Um, and then authors can also add their archive links. So those are the browser. That's how you can see a newsletter that an author has sent out without actually going and subscribing to their newsletter. You can post those links to where you can view that newsletter in the browser on StoryOrigin, and so you can see, okay, this is generally like how they design their newsletter, and this is how many clicks they have. And so that can give you some confidence about cross promoting with them. And then in terms of also tracking like for like universal book links, you can see how many clicks that your readers got on or how many clicks like your universal book links got or how many signups you've gotten to your reader magnet. You can also arrange, so going back to the website builder feature, you can also create short redirect links. So, for example, if you're familiar with Bitly, where you have a short link that is like bit.ly slash whatever, and then that will redirect the reader to, maybe you have that link redirect them to Amazon, or maybe redirects them to your reader magnet landing page or what have you. You can also set up those redirect links with your custom domain that you put on StoryOrigin as well. So you can have, evangow.com/book one. You could put that at the end of your manuscript of book one, and you could have that link point to wherever you want it to point to. So maybe you have that link point to the Amazon link for book two. Maybe you end up changing your mind and you say, oh, actually, I want to I want to send them to the reader magnet, my prequel at the end of book one to get them onto my mailing list. And then in my mailing list, that's where I'll promote book two to them or whatever, right? And so maybe you'll have that slash book one, evangow.com/book one link. Maybe you'll change that so it redirects them to your reader magnet. Or maybe you have them, maybe you end up redirecting them to your Patreon or something along those lines, right? So you can set up those redirect links on StoryOrigin. You can also track how many times those links have been clicked as well. And so that's a great way to put links at the back of your book, know how many times they're being clicked, and then also not worry about those links ever dying, right? Because um, there's lots of times authors, they'll put a link to, like a Google form at the back of their book or something along those lines. And then like ultimately like they stop using that Google form for whatever reason, but then to fix that issue, they have to go and they have to go edit their manuscript, reconvert it to like an EPUB, and then post it to all the various retailers where they have it posted and all that stuff. Versus if you use a redirect link where it's like just www.evangow/book one, and you can just change on your StoryOrigin dashboard where that redirects to. If the end link where it gets redirected to, like the Amazon page dies or the Google form page dies for whatever reason, you can just change it. So now www.evangow.com/book one, now it redirects them to my reader magnet landing page, or it redirects them to this other Amazon page, what have you.
Okay, cool. And you can also host ARCs, right?
Yeah, yeah. So
And before we
that
get into that,
yeah.
please put in the chat if you have ever run an ARC through StoryOrigin, or where you actually kind of host your ARC books, as Evan talks about this. And I'm curious about security too, with sharing these ARC books.
Yeah. So StoryOrigin's feature for ARCs is called review copies. ARCs, for those of you who are not familiar with that term, ARC is usually an acronym for Advanced Reader Copy or Advanced Review Copy. Um, The reason the feature on StoryOrigin is called review copies and not just advanced review copies is that you can use the feature for books that are both pre-publication and post-publication. So if you have a book that's been out for a year and you've only got 2 reviews on it and you want more reviews on it, well, you can still distribute that as a review copy through StoryOrigin, give that book away for free to people who intend to leave reviews. Um, but you can also use that review copies feature if you've got a book that's coming out in 2 months and you want to collect interest in those review copies and distribute them. And then at the day that you publish the book, StoryOrigin will send out an email to those readers and be like, hey, it's time to go and post your reviews on whatever sites you said you intended to leave your reviews on. Um, that review copies feature has some unique aspects to it. So, for example, when readers apply for a review copy, they request a review copy from you, and you, the author, you are in the driver's seat when it comes to who gets approved to download that copy. So, uh, readers have to be like logged into their StoryOrigin account in order to be able to access that review copy. And for readers, everything on the reader side of StoryOrigin is free when it comes to reader magnets and review copies and universal book links. They don't have it's very simple for readers to set up an account on StoryOrigin and request a review copy. They basically just put their name and email address, and StoryOrigin sends them a login link to their email, so they don't even have to think of a password. Um, so they request that review copy from you. They'd say where they intend to leave a review, like Amazon, Goodreads, BookBub, etc. And if they intend to leave a review on a place like Goodreads or BookBub, they'd also be asked for the link to their reviewer profile from that site. And so you can see, oh, hey, I put up this review copy that's for a steamy romance book, and I'm looking at this person's Goodreads profile, and it looks like they've only ever reviewed cozy romance novels. Like maybe
Hmm.
this person thinks that my book is going to be a cozy romance
That's
novel
not
when
your
it's
ideal
not,
reader.
and they're not going to like it, right? And so StoryOrigin gives you that info so that you can make smart decisions about, okay, do I actually want to give a free copy to this person? Then they're going to kind of feel, again, so there's no requirement for people to leave reviews when they get a review copy from you. Um, because that like would break terms of service of like every retailer and review platform out there. So you can never strictly require people's reviews, but people, when they get a free review copy from you and they say that they're going to leave a review, generally will because that's what they said they would do. And uh, so yeah, you don't want someone to feel like they should leave a review for a book that they're not going to like. So you can vet their reviewer profiles, and you can also see how many review copies they've requested through StoryOrigin and what their completion rates are. So if this person, maybe they've been approved for 20 review copies through StoryOrigin and they've completed their processes for 19 of them, well, you can be relatively confident if you give them access to your review copy that they're actually going to read and review it. And so yeah, you can make those decisions. And again, all StoryOrigin puts you in the driver's seat. Other review platforms usually don't give you that discretion
Yeah, let's
about
touch on that because in the comments right now,
yeah.
some say I have used ARCS and a couple others. NetGalley, phew, NetGalley's a tough crowd. I'm just saying, I've been on there one time. Those readers are tough. And then BookFunnel, obviously. So yeah, what kind of like sets you can, I mean, even talking about Story Origin in general, not just ARCS, what's setting you guys
Yeah.
apart?
So for example, so StoryOrigin's review copies feature works sort of more like NetGalley's, where like people are requesting a copy and you're approving them. I think NetGalley doesn't give, I don't think that they leave you in the driver's seat on who gets approved for your review copies.
No,
They
I don't think
are in
so.
charge of that. I'm not exactly sure. But it is more of like a review platform versus like if you look at something like distributing review copies via BookFunnel, it is more of a just straight here's the file. You're just giving the file to readers that you already know and trust. It's not really used to get reviews from people who you don't know. So I don't really classify it as a review platform in that sense, because it's usually people who you already know and you have their email addresses and you send them a link basically through BookFunnel to download the copy. So you don't have access like to their reviewer stats or their reviewer profiles or any of that stuff. A lot of times, if they're authors, if they're using BookFunnel, they're usually using it like in tandem with like a Google form or something to collect some of that information sometimes. Um, but then they don't really have access to the community sort of data that StoryOrigin gives to you, right? Because when you're doing it in a silo, you won't know, hey, this person has requested review copies from 20 other authors and they've left reviews for absolutely zero of them, right? On StoryOrigin, you see that. So if someone's been approved for 20 review copies through StoryOrigin and they have completed the process for zero of them, you can be relatively confident if you give them a copy of yours, they are not going to read it or review it. And so you can just decline that application from them on StoryOrigin. Yeah.
Kelly says, your platform offers more than BookFunnel. I will be changing who I use next time. And
Yeah,
Amanda,
I would say this about like any other service in general, right? StoryOrigin does a ton of stuff, right? Like I set out to build StoryOrigin as sort of a one-stop shop for doing everything, but I would also say like you can use other services to also help you build your mailing list, right? Or you can use other services to help you find reviewers. Like you can use NetGalley and StoryOrigin at the same time, and you can just use it to try and get more reviews, right? It's all I would evaluate sort of each service for its own return on investment, right? It's like, am I getting more value from this particular service than I am putting into it? And if the answer is yes, then you ought to use it, right? It doesn't super duper matter if you have other things that are serving some of the same functionality as another service or whatever. So I don't know. I also just know literally every other every other software provider in the space. I know them all, and so I don't ever want to be like I don't want to be too anti anyone else's thing.
yeah. Yeah, and in the end, just like I mean,
Yeah,
all kind of business in general, it's a numbers game, but it is nice
yeah,
to have know that you have your ideal reader reading your book because if
yeah,
your ideal reader is not reading your book, then that could lead to a bad review, like you mentioned,
absolutely,
and that's what we
absolutely.
don't want.
Yeah,
So we're gonna get to Christopher's question pretty soon. I think Amanda was referring to NetGalley's tough customers over there.
oh yeah, yeah. And I will also say, just because we are on the topic as well, so if you have also like uh produced an audiobook and you have ACX promo codes or audio like Audible promo codes or Findaway promo codes or like Kobo or Spotify or promo codes or audiobooks.com promo codes, depending on, you know, how you produced your audiobook, you probably can get promo codes for where readers can redeem them and listen to those audiobooks for free. And usually you get a set number of these codes to give away. Um, and really, those codes are meant to help you get reviewers for your audiobooks on those platforms. And so you generally want to use them fairly sparingly and give those out to people who you think will actually leave a review. So StoryOrigin also has a feature very similar to the review copies feature, but instead of distributing an ebook, you are distributing your audiobook promo codes. And so again, like essentially like listeners request a code from you. You can vet their like review completion stats, vet their reviewer profiles, and then if you want to, if that all works for you, then you can distribute a code to them, and then they would redeem that code on Audible or Spotify or what have you. And the other thing I will also mention with review copies as well, I hear a lot of concerns from authors who have their books enrolled in KU and they have signed an exclusivity clause with Amazon, essentially that, hey, my ebook will not be available for download anywhere else. So on StoryOrigin, that review copies feature, you can actually choose to distribute your ebook two different ways. You can either distribute it as a download through StoryOrigin, or you can choose to distribute essentially Amazon prepaid book links, Amazon gift links to your book. And so when a
Mm.
reviewer requests that review copy from you, even if your book is in KU, you can give to them, you essentially, you go and you buy a copy of your book on Amazon, and then you give them that gift link, that Amazon gift link. It gets distributed to them through StoryOrigin, and then that reader would redeem the gift link on Amazon. And so Amazon is the one that is distributing that ebook copy, not
Ah.
you or not StoryOrigin, not anyone else. So it complies with their exclusivity clause around distributing the ebook. So you don't have to worry about that. And so yeah, other advice around that is like, if you plan on doing that, like, when what you want to do is like at some point set the price of your book down to 99 cents, um and then buy a bunch of
Yeah.
copies of it and keep those in your back pocket. And then when you get, people yeah, buy like 15 copies of it or whatever, right? And if it's in KU, that ends up costing you like basically 30 cents per book to buy a copy, because like, when you buy a copy, you still get your royalty back. Um, and so it doesn't end up costing you 99 cents per copy. It's more like 30 cents per copy. But yeah, buy yourself a
Are you
handful of
teaching
them.
everyone how to game the system right now? Is that what you're doing?
No, I'm teaching you how to comply with the system,
There we
because yeah,
go.
you don't want to run afoul of legal agreements that you've made. So I mean, I guess gaming the system in the sense that like, buy your buy your book when you make your book cheap, and then buy the copies.
Yeah.
And then you can raise the price back later. But you still have those gift links that you can distribute for people to redeem, even when your book is, at a higher price point, and then you're just spending less money on acquiring copies of your own book, which kind of seems silly within kind of
If it
seems
boosts
silly that just
the ranking
adds
a
on
little
to it.
bit, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Are you good? Are you good on time?
Yeah, 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 yeah. I can stick around a bit longer.
Okay, because I wanted to get into direct ebook sales. We haven't touched on that yet.
Yeah.
Give us the
Yeah.
rundown. How can we do this on StoryOrigin?
Yeah, so StoryOrigin, like the reader magnets feature or review copies feature, there's a tab on your dashboard that will say direct sale ebooks. Works very similarly. You essentially, put up your title, your book description, upload the files. And then a little part that's different is, um, you would also choose an integration. So you'd integrate StoryOrigin. Currently only integrates with Lemon Squeezy, which is a payment processor. They were recently acquired by Stripe, but what sort of differentiates Lemon Squeezy from other payment processors like Shopify or other things is that they act as the merchant of record. So when I sell a book to anyone in any European country, the second I sell that book directly to that reader, I become liable for collecting and remitting VAT taxes, which is like the European equivalent of a sales tax. I become immediately liable for collecting and remitting those VAT taxes to that European country. And that can be a huge headache to create all the registrations and then do all these quarterly filings. And it's just a huge pain. What makes Lemon Squeezy great is they act as the merchant of record. So when someone buys a book from you, really they are actually buying the book from Lemon Squeezy, and then Lemon Squeezy collects and remits those sales tax, and you get paid by Lemon Squeezy. Um, and Lemon Squeezy doesn't really charge much over just the general payment processing fee. So generally speaking, no matter which payment processor you go with, if you're working directly with Stripe or working with Shopify or PayPal or whatever, payment processing fees almost always 30 cents plus 2.9%. 30 cents plus 2.9%. Okay. Um, Lemon Squeezy's fee is 50 cents plus 5%. Now, I have negotiated on the behalf of storage and authors to get that discounted down to 30 cents plus 5%. So, If you create a when you create that integration on StoryOrigin, it'll automatically fire off an email to Lemon Squeezy saying, "Hey, make sure to lower the fee rate on this user." And so when you make a sale via your direct sales page on StoryOrigin, you are collecting, you're collecting everything but 30 cents plus 5%. So you're making way more than you would selling via retailers. Um, and the other thing is, like I was talking about earlier, where you can have those reader magnet landing pages hosted on your own custom domain, hosted on www.evangow.com. You can now also have those direct sale ebook pages listed on your own custom domain as well. So, I could have that page hosted on www.evangow.com as well. And so I don't need to go then also set up like a Shopify store and pay their subscription fees and then also like be liable for collecting and remitting like sales tax and VAT tax across all of these different legal jurisdictions. Like once you get into actually trying to set up a Shopify store is very, very, very complicated. And it's a process that is measured in months, not days. But on StoryOrigin, creating your own author website and starting to sell direct is a matter of like minutes. And so yeah, it's a much more simplified process.
Yeah, Christopher said, I attempted to use Shopify, but I can't afford the cost of their plans. I'm also intimidated by the prospect of getting the sales tax correct. I can't afford to use Abalaro. And this question is, what is the importance of setting up a home website store versus the effectiveness of using links to online bookstores? Can you speak to that at all?
Um, what is the effectiveness of having a direct sales store versus just selling via retailers?
Vi-
Uh,
Via like your home website, like setting up a Shopify.
um, Well, I mean, when you're selling direct to readers, you just make a much higher royalty, right? Because you're just basically paying the payment processing fees. I don't know if I'm answering this question correctly.
So
And having it hosted on your own website just means that readers understand that they're buying it direct from you, and rather than buying it, from like Amazon or something like that.
Christopher, if we're not answering this correctly, just
Yeah.
type in the chat your question and let us know. I saw some crazy stat from Dave from Kindlepreneur. It was some correlation between email list and direct sales and how much your revenue increases when when you have an email list over a certain threshold and you're also selling direct. It's just kind of exponential growth in revenue, which
I
is
mean,
interesting.
I do think you also have to take those stats with a grain of salt because it's also going to be like the sample size is pretty small. And then like you also have to think about like I'm sure that there are plenty of authors who tried it with big mailing lists and like it didn't work out for them in the first like week and they abandoned it and they probably don't respond to surveys. But like definitely selling direct can be extremely valuable um, because you can make a substantially higher commission. But it does like there are things that are unique about it. It's not like I saw someone talking about it in some group a while back as like magic beans. Like, like there's been a lot of case studies and of people who have done well with it. And so a lot of other authors have sort of jumped on the bandwagon and kind of treat it like magic beans, where it's like I just start selling direct and then suddenly I make like 10 times more money. It's not really how it works. Because like a lot of authors are used to operating and selling on Amazon, where they can rely on Amazon, like the algorithm pushing their books to readers, um, like in the like also bought section and stuff, right? So, when I release a new book, if I'm comparable to other authors, like my book will appear in the also bought section. So readers might just see my book there and like go and buy it or whatever, right? Or they might just search on Amazon on like romance books or whatever, right? And so you might get some juice from Amazon there, but people aren't really like your direct sales store. You're not going to be able to rank on Google for romance
You
books.
you kind of become the algorithm because you
Right.
have to direct the
Yeah.
traffic. You
You
have a
have to
blog, you
direct the
have to have
traffic.
the SEO.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, when you have a really big mailing list, yes, it can be extremely valuable because you've already got that audience there to buy to who would be willing to support you and buy directly from you. Um, but it is still like you are the one who has to send the traffic to the store. It's not just gonna like it's not like a Field of Dreams thing where you just build it and they will come. Which like that's not even really true of Amazon either. Like if you just put an ebook up on Amazon, no one's gonna buy it. You still have to like send traffic and like do things to promote it. Absolutely. But like once you do start to get some sales of it on Amazon, like the algorithm will juice you depending on how well it's doing, right? So there's a little bit of that that you would not have if you are just selling direct.
Yeah, Christopher said, yes, the effectiveness of how motivated a customer is going to purchase on the website versus option. Yeah, not just the algorithm, but the trust factor too. Like going to a
Mm.
random website or someone that you barely know compared to going onto Amazon, which you use pretty much every day, is also a big factor in direct sales.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of where when you have an email list and you've built rapport with your audience and they see pictures of you and your dog and you say, "Hey, you can also buy my book off of my website." They're a lot more likely to trust you trust you than if they merely like somehow run across your website or something, right? And so yeah, there is that trust factor when you are selling direct that, readers don't want to be just like putting their credit card information to a bunch of different authors' random websites. Um, but the thing with StoryOrigin is when you build your author website with StoryOrigin, they all kind of have a StoryOrigin feel to them. They all look like they are customizable in limited ways. They're not fully customizable. And so they all have like a look to them. And so readers can be like, oh, this is obviously backed by StoryOrigin. I know if I buy a book through this author's website, I'm going to actually get that book. Um, and so yeah, they won't be quite as concerned about it.
Cool. Is there anyone have any questions before we wrap this up? Drop them in the chat for Evan. Is there anything, because there's so much to talk about, that you think that we missed that's super important that authors should know about Story Origin?
Um, oh, one feature I don't think I mentioned at all, is the beta copies feature is super fun. That one I built because I heard from a lot of authors like, oh, I gave out my Word doc to a bunch of my readers and they came back to me and were like, yes, I loved it. And you as the author are left with like, and like, what do I do with that? I need like I need more feedback than that to actually improve the book. So the beta copies feature is fun because when you upload your manuscript, it breaks it apart. And so readers have to leave feedback on each chapter to unlock the next chapter. And so you get much more and much more fine-grained feedback from your beta readers. And you can provide them critique guidance on each chapter as well. Like, did you find any scenes in this chapter boring? Or what did you think about the development between these characters? And so you can kind of prompt them to talk about
I
things a
like
little
that.
bit
Yeah,
more
that is the
specifically
huge
than if you just
problem.
give them a Word doc.
Giving beta copies out is like, oh yeah, it's really good. I like this character. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay.
What do I do with this?
Yeah.
Or I've heard from authors that like they'll give a link to their Google Doc out to their beta readers, and then they've got like seven beta readers like, marking up their manuscript, and then like their readers will like start arguing in the comments like on feedback in their manuscript, and they're like, people, I'm trying to work here. Like you're arguing in my manuscript. Or like just in general, like I think that that is sort of a not great experience because those readers end up biasing each other's feedback because they can see each other's feedback. And so if I see someone else's, say, the phrasing of the sentence is weird, I might also be like, oh yeah, I agree. This is like weird. But had I not seen that other person's comment, I might not have ever thought that. And so with the beta copies feature on Story Origin, each reader's experience is siloed. So they only see their own feedback. But you, as the author, all of that feedback is collated for you in an individual place. So you can peruse it all
Wait.
very easily, but each of your readers is still siloed.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, Carrie's saying beta reader feature is a godsend. No more emailing chapters back and forth. My betas love it.
Yeah.
I didn't even know
Yep.
about that feature.
Yeah,
I
it's
use it.
it's one that it's one that people don't ever talk about because like so often I'm sure you've seen this like in Facebook groups, like the perennial topic is like, how do I get started building a mailing list, right? Um and no one really ever talks about like beta copies or how to run a beta copy process, but it's this thing that many authors do, but just like people aren't asking for advice about it in the same way that they ask for advice about like how to build a mailing list. And so it doesn't get talked about. But like, yeah, the beta copies feature on StoryOrigin is one that authors that have used it like generally like love it.
Yeah.
And it was a ton of fun to build too. Just because it's pretty unique, and it was I just like it. I like
Yeah.
programming too.
Yeah. Helping them with those questions
Yeah,
is such a help
yeah,
is prompting them, and that's the word I'm looking for. Prompting them is uh, awesome. This was great. We ran over time a little bit. Sorry
yeah.
about that. If anyone has any last questions, drop them in the chat.
Or you can email me directly. My email address is evan@storyoriginApp.com. My inbox is always open. Anyone that wants to or has questions, always welcome to shoot me an email.
Is that the best place to get in contact and find you?
Yep, just shoot me an email, evan@storyoriginApp.com. If you forget that email address, you can also just go to storyoriginApp.com. If you scroll to the bottom of the homepage, you'll see my face, you'll see my name, you'll see my email address. If you hit the contact link in the footer of storyoriginApp.com, you'll also see my email address there, see a little about me. So yeah, I'm always super transparent, and my
Awesome,
my
awesome.
inbox is always open.
Are you a one-man show behind Story
Uh,
Origin?
Yeah, I am. Yes,
Oh
yes.
man.
I'm the engineer, I'm the customer support, I am the marketer, although that guy doesn't like it to put his hat on too frequently, except for at 7 p.m. on Tuesdays.
Oh wow.
So yeah.
Awesome. Well, this has been awesome. You guys know where to find Evan. Shoot him an email if you have any questions. And yeah, thanks for hopping on, Evan. This was great. I've learned a lot of stuff, and I need to get back into to marketing my books. I've been taking a break, so I'm gonna hop back on StoryOrigin now that I have a new beta reading option for my new book that I'm actually putting out. So.
Awesome. Very good.
Awesome. Thanks, Evan. It doesn't look like we have any other
Thanks again.
questions. Thanks, Kelly, everyone. Thanks for coming. And yeah, you know where to find us. All right.
Thanks again for having me.
All right. See ya.
Bye, everyone.